All right, good morning. Today is Monday, June 10th, 2024, and I'm here with Lorene Ramsey, a former Pekin Let's player who is here to share the history, legacy, and personal stories about her time with the Pekin Let's. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's been a while since the Let's have been a name anymore, but they were a big name in softball when I was playing because high school sports had not even started in Illinois at that time.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you some questions to start. Just want to learn little bit more about your childhood. So where were you born and raised?
I was born in St. Louis, and I was an only child, and my dad worked as a truck driver for what's now Nabisco, and we were not what I would call even middle class. We were probably lower middle class financially when I was young, but my dad was a real worker, and he bought a 55-acre farm, which would never go fly today, but it did then. And we moved to the country between New Haven, Missouri and Washington, Missouri. And I learned how to milk cows because we didn't have milking machines then, and slop the pigs and feed the chickens and do all that stuff. And but I wanted to do sports, and I went to a one-room country school where the teacher didn't have much of a budget. And in fact, she got us books every weekend when she went into town shopping for her groceries. And we did have a bat and a ball, though, and that's where I first started playing softball with other people. And it was so much fun. We had a school team, and the girls, and we only had 26 students, and so the girls and the boys were all on one team. And our school, Newport, played Ziegenmeyer School down the road, and no one wanted to catch, so I caught. And our pitcher, aptly named Butch Crebaum, could really throw the ball. And I had bruises and got beat up and didn't know what I was doing because there was no coaching. So I decided at that time pitching might be more fun than catching. And that was when I got my first inkling about what I wanted to do. Meanwhile, my dad was working a job driving a truck for Pepsi and found a soda company that wanted to sell a route in that area. So he went deeper in debt and bought the route, and we moved to Washington, Missouri, where I went to grade school. And there were no grade school girls teams or boys teams at my grade school in Washington. It was about a town of about 4,500 at the time. But when I went to high school, we had girls volleyball and girls softball, and the boys didn't even have baseball. They had boys softball, and so I got a chance to compete in Missouri during the 50s. And Illinois was still dragging their heels, telling girls, people that wanted girls sports, that they were too emotional and it wasn't good for their reproductive organs, and a bunch of other bull. And when the government said, and I think Edward Kennedy had a lot to do with that, because the Kennedys always played football, girls and boys, in their yard. And they passed Title IX, and softball came into existence in the schools then. But I went to Washington High School, played both sports, and then I went to Bradley University my freshman year on an academic scholarship. And I did well in class. I didn't know if I wanted to major in chemistry, sports writing, or education, and I didn't like being in the lab, but I liked all the memorization and the bookwork with chemistry. And I decided it would be too much lab work, so I decided to teach because there were no real women sports writers at the time. And I went to Illinois State because they had the best education major in the state. Still do, in my opinion. But that's what they majored in. They were Illinois State normal at the time, and they didn't have all those business majors and other majors that they have. Meanwhile, my dad, who had played softball and baseball in St. Louis when I was in grade school, we'd play catch in the backyard, and he said, "You can really throw that ball." He said, "Would you like to play on a team?" I said, "Well, I'm going to try out for the high school team, but there aren't any teams around." There weren't for girls then. And I said, "So I don't think I've got a chance." He said, "Well, I think the company that I deliver soda for has found has found a softball team that they sponsor. It's a women's team, but why don't we go down and see if you can play on it, and Mom and I'll drive you back 50 miles one way for every game." And I made the team as the third string pitcher. The coach wanted me to play on her 14 to 17-year-old team since I was 14. And it played in the afternoon, and my mom did not drive, and my dad worked, so I couldn't do that. So anyway, the last practice that I went to 2 tryouts, and the last one, she said, "Well, I've only got one uniform left with the women's team, and I'll give it to you if you want it, but I don't think you'll play hardly at all. I have 2 pitchers ahead of you, and I don't see you playing shortstop." And after I saw a shortstop, I didn't see me playing shortstop either. My dad said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I'll take the uniform." So the first game, the first string pitcher pitched and we won it. And the second game she pitched and we lost. And now the third game we're going to play the team that won the championship last year in the league. And they get 3 runs off her in the first inning. And so Marion D. Manell, our manager, asked Barb Richmond, our left fielder, who was our second pitcher, to warm up. And Barb said, "I can't warm up in that amount of time, and I don't want to pitch anyway." She said, "I'm a good outfielder, and that's what I like to play." And she said, "You don't think you can warm up in that time?" And she said, "I know I can't." So she looked at me and she said, "Well, I guess we'll go with you." And so she said, "Can you warm up in that time?" I had never pitched in a game. I didn't know how long you had to warm up, but I wanted on that field. And I said, "Yes, I can." So I went out there and threw a few pitches and started pitching and shut them out for the next 6 innings. So we're going home, and my dad said, "Do you think you'll get to start the next game since you shut them out?" I said, "No, she wants Barb Richmond to pitch. If the starter doesn't pitch. The starter said she was sick. Then the starter quit. So that left one between me and a chance. So we get to the ballpark the next night, and Marion and Barb Richmond are in a hot argument. Marion wants her to pitch, and there's plenty of time to warm up. Barb said, "I hate pitching. I don't want to pitch." And finally she said, "If I have to pitch, it's not going to happen because I'll quit the team." And Marion said, "No, no, no, we don't want that." And Barb Richmond said, "I'm a good outfielder. That's what I want to play." And she was. She was even a little better than good. And you could tell she loved it. So she said to me, "Well, I guess we'll go with you." And never showed any real enthusiasm about me. So I shut him out and we won. Pitched the next game, shut him out and we won. Pitched the next game, shut him out and we won. And about that time she decided I was the pitcher, I guess. She was a slow thinker.
So that's kind of how you got your start with
Yeah.
your softball career.
Yeah.
And that team that you're talking about, that was outside of St. Louis,
No,
correct?
that
Or
was in
St.
St. Louis. It was a women's league. I
Mhm.
was the youngest player in the league, but I couldn't play in the 14 to
Mhm.
17-year-old league. And I was good enough to play in that league. And so I had a streak of 67 and a half innings scoreless, which broke a record there at the park. So now they were getting interested in me.
Mhm.
And we won our B League, and we were to play the A League champions one night, and the St. Louis Post-Dispatch was coming out, and they were doing a big story on Cootis, the best A League team. And we beat them 3-0. And I had some good players I was playing with. Vivian Alice, that shortstop, could have played with the Lets, and we had good shortstops. But they decided to move our whole team up to the A-League. Now these gals are all in their 20s. Some of them moved out of state. Some of them got married. Some of them got pregnant. And we only had about 4 back on our other team. And she had to move some of her young kids up. And at one point my record was 4 wins and 16 losses. And I led the league for pitchers in strikeouts. So they picked me on the all-star team with one other pitcher. And we played a team they brought in from Chicago in an exhibition game. So they're introducing all of us, and one of my teammates, Ellen Sappington, who was a good player, hit 3-something, and so they introduced her, and they introduced me with my record of 4-16, and people in the stands laughed because of that. But and then they disbanded our team the next year, and I ended up with Cootis. I could have gone into any of the teams, and we finished. We won this. We didn't win the city tournament that year, but the next year we did. Then we won the 4-state tournament with Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, and Missouri, and went to the Nationals, which had like 16 teams in it, and we finished 4th. And I had a 3-1 record. Our second line pitcher pitched 1 game and lost it. And Caterpillar offered me a job to come up and pitch for them.
So that's kind of how you got your start with the Lets then.
Yes.
Was through playing in St. Louis. They saw that you were good, and the Lets decided to offer you a job and then a spot on their team.
they
as well?
offered me a job in the summer because I told them I was going to college. And they said that would be okay, you can work here in the summer, and that's what I did. And then after the first year, made these, they had all these teams. They had a men's softball team and a baseball team and a men's basketball team and the women's softball team, and treated us just as well as the men's softball team. We got the same amount of meal money on the road and everything. And so they decided to drop the men's softball and the women's softball. I think they kept basketball for maybe a year or two, and then they dropped it. They were definitely going to get out of sports. And they said they were going to use the money for intramurals, and would help more of their people, but I wasn't aware there were any intramurals. They just wanted the money, I think.
Yeah. So when you were playing with the Letts, I know that with the sponsorship change and stuff, where you played kind of differed, but can you maybe talk about the different places that you played at with them?
Well, the Letts had their own field. The men and women shared the competition field, which was well lighted, and then they had a practice field next to it, so that we were always on one field or the other. We had this big brick clubhouse that, with half of it the men's side and half the women's side. There were a lot of lockers in our side. When the game would end, you'd just drop your uniform in a heap at wherever your locker was, and they would clean it for you, and it'd be there for the next game. And it was really, we got $8 a day to eat on, and I figured it took me 4 in those days. And I saved a lot of money that way for college, along with my job at Caterpillar. So I was pretty happy where I was. And my record the first year was 16-1. So we won a game out at Nationals, but just one. And I pitched that game. So I knew I'd be back the next year. And then our manager, Chuck McCord, called a meeting, and we went to it, and they said there would be no team next year. Everybody was just heartbroken. And Chuck said that he would coach. He was getting paid by Cat to coach. He would coach, he wouldn't need a salary if we wanted to stay. And he said, but you gals are all good enough that if you want to go to another good team, you won't have any trouble, which was true, of course. But we stayed together, and he found Sunnyland for us, which of course is a small town, and had a softball diamond that we could get on at any time. We'd be the first choice. So we went there to practice. The field had rocks and stones all over it. The first night at practice, we had the stones and rocks picked up, and I can still see Esther Torrey standing in the bed of a truck. I think it was her brother's truck, and painting the park name on the sign. And there were not many bleachers there, and when we first started, there were not many people there, but it started filling up pretty fast. And the town supported us in attendance very well, but we didn't have the finances we had with Caterpillar. So I didn't know that Chuck was looking for a better place, but he was, and he found it in Pekin. We went there for an exhibition game in 1958. They had 1,500 people there that night. and the next thing we knew, we were the Pekin Letts.
Mm-hmm.
And we got the name Letts because when we played with Caterpillar, we were the Dieselettes, and they dropped us and we dropped Diesel.
Mm-hmm. Can you maybe describe a little bit of the team dynamics with the Letts and kind of how you fit in with the other players? What was the camaraderie like with you
Very
guys?
good.
Mm-hmm.
All of them worked there full time, but me, and but I worked there in the summer. And one of our players, Pep Kerwin, who played even longer than I did. I played for 18 years, and she had started before I got there, and she played with the Peoria Red Wings baseball team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's the last living Red one, was the last living Red Wing in Peoria. She passed away about 2 or 3 months ago.
Oh.
And anyway, her mother owned a house, and she rented rooms. It had a lot of rooms in it, and she rented rooms, so I lived with 6 or 7 of the other players. They all had a room, and then there was an apartment area, and so we played the games there in the house all the time. Not physically, but talking about them and
Mm-hmm.
everything.
And then when playing for the team, obviously you had to balance other responsibilities such as school and work. So how did you handle the pressures of competing for your high level team along with the other stuff that you had to do?
Well, I was used to practicing. Even in high school, we practiced every night, really, that we didn't play, and except Sunday. We never practiced on Sunday. And so I had been through it from the time I was 14. I didn't practice with the St. Louis teams except for the beginning of the season, maybe 1 or 2 practices, and that was it, because we had to drive 100-mile round trip just to play ball. And that school was always fairly easy for me, so that was not a stress thing either. So it all worked together.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And then I know you mentioned earlier that the community support and fan base for the Letts was really, really good.
The best in the United
yeah.
States.
Could you maybe just talk a little bit more about that, and maybe what was it like for you to play in front of such large audiences?
Well, the largest was when the Japanese came through, and they were not too successful at that point. That was 1962, and they were really starting to build over there. And so they put them with to play the Orange Lionettes, who had finished second in the national tournament like the year before, the Phoenix Ramblers, who had won it previously a long time ago, us, and Ray Bestis, who was the current defending national champion, and they were getting beat everywhere. Mm-hmm. So finally they decided to schedule New Linden, New Jersey, which we always played before we went to Ray Bestis, so we knew we had a sure win. And they did win there. But we had 10,000 fans on Saturday night. Mm-hmm. Some of my friends came to the game. They couldn't even get in the parking lot. They had to park 2 and 3 blocks away from Mineral Springs Park just to get to the park. And the next day it was 9,600, and everybody was there. Of course, the mayor was there, and our senator, and his name escapes me right now, but he's big in Pekin, and was there, United States Senator, and I think they pulled him across the field before the game in a rickshaw, and the Pekin City Band played. If you were a crook, you could have come into town that night and just stolen everything, I think, because they were all at the ballpark. And we drew 120,000 people that year. We were averaging close to 4,000 or 5,000 a game. And we had a pretty good team. And it kept getting better, and in 1965 we finished third in the world tournament.
And again, with all the large crowds and everything that you guys drew, how was the team covered by the media?
Lloyd Armstrong was a sports editor in Pekin, and he gave us everything, pictures, headlines on the sports page. And I said to him once, "Boy, Lloyd, you really cover us a lot." And he said, "There's not a lot going on in Pekin, and I decided when we got the Letts, we were going to make them number one." And so we got tremendous. They'd come to your job and take a picture of you doing whatever you were doing, and then write a story about each individual player. And he was there for every home game and some of the road games. And the Journal-Star carried us a little bit to start with. And then we were drawing more than their men's baseball team that was playing. I don't think it was a pro league team, but it was at one at Shea Stadium. And they caught on too, and then Paul King started covering us. He was sports editor of the Journal-Star, so we got really terrific publicity then too. And there was no real college for girls here in Illinois. I played on the varsity at Illinois State, and I played field hockey. My first field hockey game was the first one I ever saw, because I'd never even heard of field hockey till I got to Illinois State. And the basketball coach, Jean Friedel, was the hockey coach, and she finagled me into coming out for field hockey. And then we played 9 months or 9 weeks of volleyball, 9 weeks of basketball, 9 weeks of softball, in our white blouses and white shorts that we bought for ourselves. And that's what other schools did too.
Can you maybe share a memory of one of the most memorable games that you had with the Pekin Letts?
There were a lot of them.
Oh, you can talk about them all if you want. Yeah, pick a few.
My first one that I finally got to start, but because when I came up there, they had 2 pitchers, and they were pretty good. It wasn't like St. Louis, where I thought immediately when I saw those 2, we were going home one night, and my dad, early, after the first game, and my dad said, "What do you think of whatever her name was? I can't even remember." I said, "I'm better than her." Well, I couldn't say that because I hadn't seen these gals pitch, but I knew they were good, and I knew I was there because and Chuck liked to have 2 pitchers and rotate them, and so I was rotated out really to start. I pitched 1 inning going into July, and we were playing Wichita, Kansas on the way to somewhere. It was the Caterpillar break, and we always took a big trip then, and because everybody was off, and we were beating this team 11-0 in the 6th inning, and Chuck said to Madeline Doda, who was also sitting on the bench with me, "Lorene and Madeline warm up." And we're walking out there, and Dodie said to me, "You think we can hold an 11-run lead in one inning?" She was being very sarcastic, and I just laughed. And about that time, our first baseman got hurt. He moved Joan Nelson, who was pitching, to first. She was a good hitter, and I became the other pitcher. And from then on, Lou Albrecht, who was a good pitcher, and I shared. And then she went to California because her brother lived out there, and she wanted to go back, and she never had gone to college. She was going to live with her brother and his wife. And I became the ace pitcher, and it pretty much was like that from then on. We had other pitchers. Some of them were very good. Darlene Winter was a good pitcher. Jerry Hammerstrand was a good pitcher, but they were both good hitters, and they played a position and pitched when necessary.
And then, kind of summing up your whole time with the Letts, how did playing for the Letts influence your life on and off the field?
I was always happy. I enjoyed coaching a lot. I never did, and I enjoy playing golf, but I never enjoyed anything as much as I did pitching. So, and I was getting to pitch a lot. One year, I think I won 34-3 or something like that, and just in the summer. And so I think it taught me how to get along with all levels of people, as it does all kids that play sports. And I think one thing I remember saying when I was coaching, we won the national tournament the last year. We had 7 black players, 7 white players, 1 Hispanic, 4 girls from international countries that I never left the gym to recruit them. They were placed there by Division I teams because they did not take the TOEFL test, and when you come over you have to do that. It was one of the most cohesive teams I ever had, with the most mixture I ever had. And I remember saying at the end of the year, if our world could get along like these girls did with all their differences this year, we'd never have any wars. And that's what athletics does for you.
Oh, yeah.
You learn to value people that would have been outsiders to you, and all of a sudden, you really like them.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then I'm going to move into some questions kind of about Title IX a little bit. So what was the atmosphere like surrounding women's athletics during your time with the Pekin Letts?
Very good in Pekin with the Letts. We were number 1. We never had any doubts until school started, and then boys basketball was number 1. But they were number 2 during the summer. And and at Caterpillar we were treated very well. And in my high school, I had the same coach for 4 years. It was a very stable situation. So I wasn't really aware of Illinois, which was terrible. The worst, one of the worst states in the whole union. And for girls' athletics, as far as I was concerned, because there was none. Other states, Iowa was filling their arena with their girls' basketball finals. Other states surrounding us, Missouri, were playing, and Illinois was doing nothing. So I joined the Women's Sports Day Committee, which was a group of physical education teachers pushing to get competition for girls. And the state of Illinois was divided into 17 regions, and each region had a principal, and they went to Chicago once a year and voted on things. And so we got a principal from one of the suburbs up there to present our case, and he got voted down 15-2. You have to have a principal presenting these things. Joe Blow off the street can't walk in. So we were having trouble finding a principal, and we found mine, Bob Kane, because he had an athletic daughter and he wanted her to have a chance to compete. He had competed. So he went up and he just gave and I went up with him, he just gave a tremendous talk. And we sent out a brochure. All we were asking for was volleyball, softball, and I think it was tennis, and limited 4 sports days in each thing to start, so that they had plenty of time to get organized.
And this was when you were at Pekin High School,
When
correct?
I taught for 6 years at Pekin High
yeah.
School, and I was in charge of the GAA.
Mm-hmm.
And so Mr. Kane said, I brought Lorene Ramsey with me. She's in charge of our GAA, so if you have any questions, ask her. They asked 4 questions. They were all plainly answered in the brochure they got. And so we walked out, and his presentation could have sold sand in a desert. And I said, Mr. Kane, do you think we won? He said, hell no. And I want to apologize to you for the stupidity of those principals. They didn't even read what I sent them and what you sent them. And so we're driving home, and he is just furious. And he's complaining about this and that and all. And finally he said, you don't seem nearly as upset as I am. I said, well, I don't have a daughter I'd have to go home and tell this to. And I'm used to it, and you're not.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you're right. But we kept on pushing, and they kept on voting it down 15-2. Our own region voted down. And then in the suburbs of Chicago, there were these 2 girls they were sisters, wanted to be on the Olympic swimming team, and they were all over the country competitive. So they went in and asked their athletic director for a girls swimming team at the high school. He said, well, I wish we could, but we can't. And if I try to get a swimming team, there's nobody to swim, first of all. And secondly, they'll put our boys program on probation.
Oh.
So the girls' parents came to talk to the superintendent. And, they told him all the reasons, and he told them just what the athletic director had said, or what I would have said if I was athletic director. There wasn't anything you could do. And the father got up and he said, you tell the IHSA, and I want them to hear this, that we're suing them for this inequity.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, and I'm a lawyer, and my wife is a lawyer, and we're going to spend a lot of time on it.
Mm-hmm.
The next vote went 9-8. They could see it coming, and then Title IX went in.
So yeah, so you really did have to push a lot to get girls athletics here.
Absolutely.
And then also I know, obviously, legendary coach at ICC for basketball and softball there. And I know you mentioned that ICC had 3 female teams actually before the men's were established.
Yeah, the reason for that was, and I've got to tell you, and I think it's still the same, the women were never in the back seat. They gave us what we needed, they gave the men what they needed. And we rented the YWCA gym. That was all we could get into because our gymnasium was not finished. I think it was 1973 it finally got finished. And they got right on it after the main building was built, just like they said they would. One thing about working there, when they say something, they do it. Anyway, Max Mays and I were the first 2. They were going to hire 1 woman, 1 man. He was wonderful to work with, and he'd been a college athlete. And we put up these pamphlets all over campus about intramural basketball for men or women, and we had little places that they could put their name and phone number and all information we needed. 200 and some men signed up and 8 women signed up. This was 1969, and women had never played basketball in high school. So I met with the 8 women, and then I said to Max, I don't know what we're going to do with 8 women. He said, well, we could put them in as a team in the men's tournament. He was very sincere about this. I said, you haven't seen them play, Max. They've never played high school basketball. I have 1 athlete and 7 pretenders. And I said they'd lose 100 to 20, maybe not 100 to 20, maybe 100 to 10. And he said, well, I know the captains from flag football and other things we've done, and I could put 1 girl of the 8 on each of a men's team. So I presented that to the girls. No. So I went to Rich Bales, who was our division chairman, and said, gave him the background, and I said, I don't think we should start women's basketball this year. I said, I will look around campus, and I've got 8 names, and 6 of them are freshmen, and I think I can get them back, and we can have maybe an intramural program, but I don't know. Since the high schools don't do anything, they're not into this. So he said, well, we're going to have women's basketball. I said, those 8 women are going to take 2 nights out of the gym from 200 men. He said, that's right. He said, they got to start. And I said, well, what would you do with 8 women for 4.5 months? He said, I don't know. I'm a social science major. That's why I hired you. You come back with an answer. And that's what the answer was. We'll play other schools.
Wow. And then, obviously, before Title IX even, ICC was pretty good with female athletics and everything, but did you notice any changes at ICC after Title IX for female athletics?
No, because by then, that was 1972. we already had basketball, volleyball, and softball. No, we didn't have volleyball yet. Basketball and softball. I think volleyball came in 73 or 74 when I didn't want them, everything I asked for I got.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't want volleyball at that time because we already had basketball and softball, and we were playing in the still in the rental gym with I think we got Friday night, and they gave that to the girls for the games. So now we had even there one night more than the men had.
Mm-hmm.
But I submitted volleyball. I think it was in 1973. I know we were either going to be in the gym or we were in the gym. And everybody approved it. Our athletic director approved it. So it had to go to the board because they spent the money.
Mm-hmm.
And now they were building something else. I mean, our enrollment was skyrocketing, and we had no place but these sheds and the one building, and it was not all finished yet like it should be, and the gym now,
Mm-hmm.
and it was finished, and so when the board finally got it in what is it, August, I think, they approved it unanimously.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have to hire a volleyball coach. Well, all the good volleyball coaches have a job by then. So I talked to whoever was AD then, it might have been Max, and I said, I'd like to start the volleyball program right away, maybe. And he said, well, we're not going to hire somebody off the street. We're going to hire somebody we really want and we can keep.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, let's just wait a year. And I had been alerted in how down Illinois was and everything. I said, no, I'll coach the volleyball team, and I won't be very good. I'll do the best I can. And we had a winning record. We were 7-4, I think. We only played 11 matches, but we had a team, and we had a couple of pretty good high school kids.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we got started.
And if anything at all, how did Title IX impact opportunities for your athletes?
It opened up scholarships for women, not right away and not real fast and not total usually, but Nancy Rice was our first scholarship. She got our point guard. We won a small college tournament the next year, the second year. She was most valuable player, and she got a scholarship to Southern Illinois at Carbondale. They were way ahead in women's athletics, and ISU caught up with them fairly rapidly, and then the rest of them kind of fell in line and offered money.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the girls went on that could not have afforded to go on to college.
Mm-hmm. And then, what advice would you give to young female athletes today, especially those who may not fully understand the impact of Title IX?
I wouldn't have a whole lot of advice for them because they live in such a different world than the girls that I coached.
Mm-hmm.
But I would tell them what I used to tell my teams. You'll have 2 years of basketball or softball or volleyball, And I want you to do the very best, because you may not get another opportunity to enjoy each other and enjoy the competition. Most of you, however, will go on to four-year schools, which they do, and so you'll have basketball, volleyball, or softball, and if you can get your schooling paid for, you can get out without these big debts that students have, or even little debts then. And the one thing you got to remember every day when you go to class is what you're learning in class you're going to use maybe in your job for the next 30 or 40 years. And this is only going to be 2 or 4 years, so never forget that.
And then, is there anything else that you'd like to share surrounding your time with the Letts that you think is important for people to know?
Yes, I think we had a sisterhood on that team, and none of us live together anymore, but we're all, the ones that are still alive are all in the area and have their own homes, and we meet as a group. And I played in 1955, and it's not 1955 anymore, and I'm still going to Pekin Letts meetings. We had a get-togetherness through athletics that other people don't have. I won't say this. I think people that are soldiers and sailors in the service and in combat, they always come back. And I know a guy lived across the street. He'd fly to Seattle, Washington when they had a reunion every year, you know. People that are in those combat situations where they are competing and depending on their teammates, you get a real feel for those people.
Well, that was actually my last question that I had for you, but thank you so much.
Yeah.